Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, your constant in change of pace in that intro, it's Shatner-esque, and I gotta say, I love it. It's fantastic.
That's the nicest thing that you have ever said to me. And you've said a lot of nice things to me. But you saying this in front of everybody, comparing me to William Shatner is, I'm just going to loop these 40 seconds over and over again and then release this as a bonus episode, Tom. If there's anything else you would like to say, Tom, thank you for saying that. Anything else good you would like to say about me?
Yeah, I'm out. That's it. Are we done with the show?
No, Tom. Now we have to spend the next 29 minutes being awkward about it. But that's what Buckeye Weekly is. It's 30 minutes of awkwardness, and it won't be awkward silence. It'll be awkward, and it won't even be awkward bickering. That's Wednesday's show with the predictions, the bold predictions. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to that one, because that was a pretty good one this week. I know they're not usually good. That one was pretty good. We'll see if it was great after I get 7 of my 7 bold predictions correct, and Tom gets all 0 of his 7 correct. That would be probably the best podcast in the history of multimedia on this earth, in my opinion. But Tom, it's Friday. It's time to preview the weekend. A lot of big games this weekend. A bunch of playoff hunt teams going on the road for games that they could definitely lose unless they're playing at Tennessee. But we'll get to that one. Don't worry. Tom, we probably should start out with, first of all, there's a good game last night, a fun game probably. Who's to say how that one turned out, Tom? Would you like to tell us how the North Carolina and Wake Forest? No, that was last week.
That was last week. I can spoil that one. North Carolina won. I don't want to spoil. If people have it on their DVRs, I don't want to spoil it.
So let's talk about today's game, Friday. Number 5, Cincinnati, going to South Florida. National television. Everybody's going to be watching. Cincinnati is a 23-point favorite. We don't really have to talk a lot about this one because it's, we're not going to, the last time we broke down South Florida was 2007. Don't need to revisit those days. But this is going to be another game where everybody's watching you, Cincinnati. Let's see you dominate your conference. Let's see you dominate these teams that you're supposed to. And when you're playing teams that have bad records and it comes down to the final quarter, you're not doing yourself any favors. You can't blame the voters. You can't blame the committee. You control your own destiny, and you've let the destiny control you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati has just very clearly not handled their business. The last 3 weeks, they've played 3 teams they should have beaten pretty comfortably, and they beat none of them comfortably. And when you are a group of 5 team with essentially one resume point to hang your hat on, you cannot do that. That is just not a luxury you have. And, USF 23 points is an awful lot. USF is, you remember the story of someone saying that like Steve Belisari is the kind of quarterback that gets you fired because he looks good enough in practice and then doesn't look good, just enough good enough in practice that you can't bench him, but then he doesn't do it in the game. That's kind of USF. Like, they've lost. They have a terrible record. They're 2-7 right now, but they played a pretty good Houston team last week at home and lost 54-42. Like, that's a pretty competitive game. They lost to a halfway decent Tulsa team that just took Cincinnati down to the wire by 1 point. That was at home. Both of those games are at home. BYU, they went to BYU, lost by only 8 points. I mean, that's the kind of team that, they're not getting blown out a lot. Like, NC State smoked them week 1, Florida smoked them week 2, but by and large, they've at least been in games after that. So this could potentially be the 4th straight game where, Cincinnati's playing a team with a losing record in their division or in their conference and just not looking great doing it. This is, if Luke Fickell can just, really drop the bomb on someone, this would be a good week to do it, because you really need to change the narrative around your team. Because once people make up their minds about you, it's very, very hard to change it. And everyone is sort of just at this point it's sort of just ingrained in people now. Well, like Cincinnati, like they'll win, but they won't look great doing it. And ultimately, you're going to get jumped because the teams behind you are going to be winning and and picking up much better wins than you are. So They need a lot of help. They're fifth right now, and they still need a lot of help to potentially get into that college football playoff field.
I've been to South Florida once. I've been to Nebraska a couple of times.
Wow, humble brag.
I'm just saying they're very similar on the field with their losses and very similar off the field. They're like you're in Nebraska. You're like, is this South Beach? No, okay, no. I got to remind myself where I am. And then you're in South Florida, and you're like, this feels like Nebraska. They're very similar geographical demographics and makeups, and then also football losses are very similar as well. So let's see how Cincinnati does. You got nothing going on Friday at 6 p.m. Watch some football. I mean, I'm sure the crowd is going to be really into this one and just a frenzy like you won't believe. Tom, let's talk about the Saturday games, though. And I think this one is kind of maybe snuck up on everybody. Michigan at Penn State. Penn State, unranked, garbage team. We know that. The committee told us, like, garbage, trash team. Michigan, number 6, better than Michigan State, clearly. I don't think there's any argument there. They are a more complete team than Michigan State. And if the two teams met on the field, it wouldn't matter because Michigan is more complete. Penn State, a 1.5-point underdog, over under 48.5. I feel like Michigan is going to have some trouble running the ball in this one. Will they be able to throw the ball like they did 2 weeks ago, where they actually, really focused on throwing the ball? And I think McNamara may have thrown for 150, 180 yards in the first half of that one. Like, they really, like, we're going to do this. But I don't know if Penn State's secondary is better than Michigan State, so I don't know how effective that will be. Is Blake Corum 100%? We know he hurt his foot, left the game, was in a walking boot. Where is he? This feels like a Penn State defense that maybe is suited well to handle Hassan Haskins. And then with Sean Clifford, Jahan Dotson, I think Penn State's passing game can maybe finally start attacking Michigan. We've been talking all season long. Like, people haven't really had the weapons on the outside or the quarterback or the tackles to allow for some deep shots. Maybe Penn State has all of that. And I don't know how much of it they need to win, say, 27-23, something like, or 24-20, something like that.
My biggest concern there with Penn State, of all the things you listed, is the tackles. Like, I don't know how much I believe in the Penn State pass pro. It just seems like you might see Aiden Hutchinson or David Ajabo on top of Sean Clifford a couple times on Saturday afternoon. That just feels like a thing you might see. But I think you're also going to see Jahan Dotson potentially scoring a couple touchdowns. So I every week we talk about Michigan, and every week I go, I don't know how much we really know about them, because we're what, 9 weeks into the season, 9 games into the season, and I still don't really 100% know how is that Michigan pass defense. They literally haven't been tested. They have not played a team that can throw the ball downfield. Now you're potentially playing a team that can throw the ball downfield. Let's see what they do against Jahan Dotson. That will tell me a lot about Michigan, is how they handle Jahan Dotson. Can they keep him to 80 yards, 6 catches for 80 yards, or is he going to go 8 catches for 160 yards? That's going to tell me a lot. And that's also going to go a long way towards determining what this game looks like. Blake Corum, obviously you mentioned the injury last week. I thought, I haven't seen an update on Blake Corum. So I just Googled Blake Corum and hit news. And here are the headlines. Michigan running back coach Mike Hart secretive when discussing status of Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. With Blake Corum's status unclear, running back depth takes a hit for Michigan. Status of Corum Edwards still a mystery heading into Penn State. So we're going to call him questionable. But yeah, without him, I don't believe in the Michigan passing game. If you don't have Corum, I think that hurts your running game. Ronnie Bell's out for the season. Obviously, we've talked about that a whole bunch of times. I don't really believe in the passing game there. This just feels like, what's the over under here? 48.5 under. Under is my take on this game. Under. And Penn State giving 1.5 at home, or getting 1.5 at home. I think I'd think about that. This just feels like there are a couple Vegas nose games here on the schedule for this week, where it's like much higher ranked team going on the road to play a much lower ranked or unranked team and not giving very many points. Those are always like, what does someone smarter than me know? And this is one of those games. I think I'd go Penn State and in the under on this one.
Yeah, talking about the tackles and the sacks. Illinois 4 sacks against Penn State when they played. Ohio State, I think 3 or 4, and Maryland 3 or 4. So there's if Ohio State 4 and Maryland 3. So there have been some issues, and now you're facing the best duo in the country, trying to stop them. So have fun with that one. But like I expect Hutchinson and Ojabo to create at least one turnover and create a score out of that, like a 13-yard touchdown drive, that sort of thing. But
Yeah,
where do the rest of the points come from?
Exactly. Yeah, you to get to 48 points, like this is going to be a 25-24 game or 27-24, like that seems kind of high. And the lower the score, who does a lower scoring game favor? Does that favor Michigan, or does that favor? It feels like Penn State is going to not necessarily be able to move the ball consistently, but be able to hit some big plays.
I think lower score favors Penn State because they may need those big plays to score those 20 points. And I'm thinking like a 20-16. I mean, that's I like Penn State. I'm taking Penn State in this one. Do you have who are you taking? Are you taking anybody?
I'm going to take Penn State, and I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I'm taking an outright win there. Now you move to number 8, Oklahoma, undefeated, 9-0 on the season, 6-0 in conference play at Baylor. Number 13, Baylor, 7-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. Baylor, 5.5-point underdog in this one. People keep waiting for Oklahoma to lose, and this is a stretch of games where you're like, it could be this week, could be this week, could be next week, could be the week after that. And they were off this week, so they had a week to prepare for Baylor, get Caleb Williams more comfortable with another full week of practice as the number 1 quarterback. I've been impressed with what I've seen from him as a Heisman candidate, whatever, like just making big plays in big moments. Nothing seems too sizable for him. Like he can handle these things. What you have to watch out for is the random second quarter pick 6, or, just you start to get a little full of yourself and then boom, you've got a turnover. We've seen that happen, and he might get locked in the fourth quarter, but it might not be enough. I guess until I see Oklahoma lose, like I don't have also much faith in Baylor. You look at their wins and they're like, all of like every team in the Big 12. You look at their wins and it's like, well, this guy here is dead. And so I'm going to take Oklahoma. I don't know. I may take the points though.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like they're going to blow Baylor out. Baylor hasn't gotten blown out this year. They've played a lot of close games. I just double checked this. I remember doing this during the college football playoff show. Like, did I remember wrong where they were last week? Because they lost last week to TCU, who just fired their coach because they're having a terrible season. And Tony, they dropped 1 point in the one place in the college football playoff rankings. Like, what?
Nothing wrong with that.
What? I did that on Tuesday when they released it, and then I just was looking through your rundown of things, and I'm like, 13 Baylor, that can't be right. Apparently it's right. Boy, life is full of choices, isn't it? So that's Oklahoma. It feels like they're not gonna win their next 4 games. They're gonna lose at least one of the next 4 games. It's Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and then one of those 4 again in the Big 12 championship game. They're not going to win all 4 of them. I don't know which one they're going to lose. I'd say it's like under 50% in each of those games that they're going to lose. They're probably favored in all 4 of them, but you're playing that many games in a row. You're probably going to lose one. Ohio State is kind of in a similar situation where it's like, boy, you've got 4 losable games in a row right now. You're going to be favored in all of them, but it's going to be real hard to win those 4 games in a row. And I think Ohio State is a more talented team this year than Oklahoma is. So I don't know that I feel real strongly that they're going to lose this week, but I feel pretty strongly they're going to lose one of these, which then makes that playoff conversation even more interesting. And if Baylor does lose, do they drop another spot in the playoff rankings? Tune in Tuesday night to find out.
Let's calm down on dropping Baylor for losing 2 weeks in a row. I mean, come on. This next one we do not need to spend much time with. And I'm not even sure why I included it here, other than the fact that Auburn is ranked and Penn State is not. So Mississippi State traveling to number 17 Auburn. Auburn ranked number 17 on the basis of, I guess, winning one of their 4 games against ranked opponents, that game being a 31-20 win over Ole Miss. They lost at Penn State 28-20, lost to Georgia 34-10, lost at Texas A&M last week 20-3, and yet here they are, Auburn 17th in the nation, like they own the joint. And so I guess if you want to root for a team in this one, certainly root for Mississippi State to muddy things even more. But then I don't know if Mississippi State reclaims the number 17 spot that they had the week before. But this is just, I mean, the SEC West is muddled here. And I think I only included this one just to mention Auburn and Penn State. And again, I'm still not over Penn State being unranked. And I'm also not over being such a Penn State defender right now. It's like this is not ever who I wanted to be, Tom.
Tony, what's your handle on BWI?
I don't want to say that here because I almost said something that I shouldn't, and I'm not going to say it and not even going to think it.
Yeah, I feel like I did my 17 minutes on the outrage of Penn State and Auburn and their rankings on Tuesday night, partially when Tony was on the college football playoff conference call. So I will, I'll just say, yeah, it's ridiculous that Penn State is ranked behind Auburn right now because, head-to-head matters, unless it doesn't. So anyway, yeah, that's one that, like, well, someone's got to lose that game. So there you go.
I'm looking at the 3:30 games, and I realize I have a slight typo here in this Georgia-Tennessee game. Tom, you can see that typo. At number 1, Georgia, 9-0, 7-0 on the season, over under 56 points. Tennessee, 5-4 in the season, 3-3 overall. The line on this one, I have it as Georgia favored by 2. Obviously, I've misplaced the second half of that digit. I don't know if it's 24, 21, 20. I do have some keys of this keyboard is getting a little old. Maybe it's 200. Maybe the zeros they don't work anymore. But Tennessee, obviously, like a 3-touchdown underdog in this one, and people love the Tennessee offense, but I don't know that it's going to be nearly enough in this one. Tennessee has, do they have a puncher's chance? Do they have more of a scratcher's chance? Like, what that burns? You could get an eye gouged. Cornea issues, like that's a pain to come back from, and I could definitely see Georgia getting a cornea injury. But you look at what happens when they play ranked teams, and well, what happens is they lose 41-34 to Pitt, 31-26 to Ole Miss, 52-24 to Alabama. But they're kind of in those games and they kind of have some good moments. Tennessee just can't put 4 quarters of good moments together, and they have not been able to since, 1998.
The last time Tennessee put 4 good quarters together, Clint Sterner was involved. So, yeah, it has been a minute. And I think if you look at Georgia, they're not invincible this year. I think Georgia is by far and away the number 1 team in the country, but that may be more of a function of 2 through 130 in the country than anything else. Because I still haven't seen Georgia throwing the ball downfield particularly well. I think there's areas where they could be vulnerable. If you can stop their run, I think you can keep it close. Go back 2 weeks, and it was 3-0 Georgia right before halftime until Dan Mullen committed seppuku on the sideline. I mean, it was. You don't have, if you don't completely blow yourself up. If you can put some drives together. Let's see if Georgia is, how does Georgia handle it if they're behind? If Tennessee scores an early touchdown or 2 and Georgia's behind, let's see how they handle it. If Tennessee can avoid, completely killing themselves, maybe don't go into self-destruct mode like Florida did. Now, I realize I just said, as long as Tennessee doesn't go into self-destruct mode, like, again, we are all aware of the last 20 years of football and what that means. So, Tennessee is going to go into self-destruct mode, but Georgia, go through Georgia's schedule, and it's just Clemson, UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, Charleston Southern, Georgia Tech. Like, the only ranked team there is Auburn, and Auburn might not be ranked after this week, and you probably shouldn't be ranked. I mean, if we want to, or at least shouldn't be ranked as highly as they are. They have one fringe top 25 win right now. That's it. That's Georgia's resume. So I think you can kind of look at them like they're going through the East Coast Pac-12 right now. That's kind of the SEC East. It's just like you're playing. They are a better team than Oregon, but they don't have a win as good as Oregon does, and the bulk of their schedule is not significantly more impressive than Oregon's schedule. And so yeah, I'm still not entirely bought in on Georgia this year, but I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to put together 4 good quarters in order to beat them. But maybe they make it interesting for a little while.
I assume that's the 3:30 or the CBS game. So it'll be interesting to see if Tennessee does like kind of blow out Georgia. Is Gary Danielson trying to put Tennessee into the playoff talk and really getting them in there and saying, look what this team has done. And, this is a very big win. And why shouldn't they? Nobody else has beaten Georgia, and they've done something that nobody else has. Tom, let's next move to the Purdue-Ohio State game. We have previewed that one on Thursday's show. You want to go back and listen to that one. You'll get more talk there than we're going to do here on this one. I believe, Tom, I think Ohio State will outrush Purdue. Now, you may disagree with that one. Who is going to throw for more yards in this one, Tom? Is it Ohio State with just their normal offense? Is it Purdue with just their normal offense? Is it going to be Purdue trying to catch up because Ohio State is also able to run the ball successfully, so they don't need to throw it as much? Tom, for $1 million internet dollars, who will throw for more yards in the game on Saturday, Ohio State or Purdue?
I feel like you're just asking me, will Ohio State be able to run the ball? Like that's really literally what you're asking me, because
I don't know what you're talking about.
If Ohio State can run the ball, then Purdue's going to throw for more yards. And if Ohio State can't run the ball, then they're going to get real pass happy again and throw 50 something passes and throw for 400 yards. And I don't think Purdue's throwing for 400 yards. So I'm going to say that Ohio State throws for more yards than Purdue does.
You don't think they're going to be able to run the ball?
I think they'll be able to run the ball better than Purdue can, but that just means they can run the ball better than you and me and Kevin Noon can against Purdue. I mean, that's fine. Like, that's great. But I want to see it. Like, let's see it. Let's see, you've kind of seen the same recipe from Nebraska and Penn State defensively in terms of what they're doing to stop the Ohio State run game. Okay, let's see the counterpunch. Let's see what you're going to do it. And I mean, it's not like you haven't seen them run the ball at all. It's not like this is a completely hopeless running attack like Purdue is, but I kind of want to see it. So I'll say Ohio State throws for more yards than Purdue.
I'm with you. And I think Ohio State will be able to run the ball a little bit more than last week. Certainly, probably, perhaps. But I do think they'll throw the ball as well, throw the ball for more as well. The weather, Tom, I know everybody's concerned about the weather right now, like low 40s and no rain at this point. And so hopefully that remains the case. And I'm with you. Ohio State throws for more yards. Let's stay in the Big Ten. Minnesota at Iowa. Both of these teams are 4-2 in conference play. They are part of a 4-team tie in the Big Ten West right now. The over-under on this one is a robust 37, with Iowa a 5.5-point favorite. And if Minnesota loses this one, that's going to create an entirely huge mess when they go ahead and beat Wisconsin at the end of the season. And whereas Iowa, Purdue probably has 3 losses at that point. Iowa is probably at, I don't know that they're going to stay with 2 losses this year the rest of the way out, because they've not that they've been exposed. Everybody knows. It's just they have not been able to overcome their offensive inefficiencies. So I have no real good thoughts on Minnesota at Iowa other than I will not be watching this game. I would not encourage anybody to watch this. I wouldn't even encourage the Sickos committee to watch this thing. There's going to be nothing pleasing about this game, nothing redeeming, and even whoever even wins it, still, yeah, you're perhaps in the lead of the Big Ten West, but there's still more to come. There's still other ugly games you're going to have to win after this one. So I won't be watching this time. I know. Are you super interested? Will you even be recording this one?
Oh Lord, no. Yeah, this is the matchup of two teams tied for the lead of the Big Ten West standings right now, fighting for the right to play in the Big Ten championship game. They are also two teams that have scored 10 points against Bowling Green and 6 points against Illinois, and a team that has scored 7, 7, and 17 points in its last 3 games. Tony, does the over-under of 37 seem a little high to you?
It absolutely does. And I think each team should be given 7 points to start the game, and then you go from there.
Yes. Today's everybody gets a touchdown trophy, or everybody gets a touchdown, community or society, and why it is destroying our children. My column. Yes. If you were covering this game, would you call in sick? I feel like that would be somewhat appealing.
I've got yes, and
there's other things you can do with your life other than watching this game. That's all I'll say.
So you cover the game, you got to deal with the post-game press conference, and also like if this game goes overtime, don't go with the current rules, the overtime rules. Each team should go to this game. They should each have a monkey, and they should give each monkey a knife, and then you just put them in a refrigerator box, and whichever monkey comes out, that's who wins. You can put little jerseys on them, little Hawkeye jersey, and a little Minnesota jersey, and whichever monkey gets out of that box first wins.
Big life, big stage, big monkey knife fights. Man, now I want to watch. Now you totally sold me. Now I want to watch this game. Speaking of monkey knife fights, Miami versus Florida State.
And I only put this in there just to talk about how could you have ever imagined this game being so worthless and pointless? 5-4 Miami, a 3-6 Florida State, and it's been that way for a while now. But like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Florida State, Miami, this was it, man. This was the thing. Like you waited all year to see it. Similar for me to Florida, Tennessee, which no longer means anything. But like these are some of my favorite things. Notre Dame, Michigan. But this is I won't watch it. This is going to be one of those things on the ESPN2 post game show like that runs all Saturday or Sunday long. This game will be shown at like the 37-minute mark of the 60-minute show. Like it's no longer a thing, and that's the only reason I have included it. So Tom, I guess is it still a thing?
No. Next game, Maryland at Michigan. Maryland at Michigan State. 13-point favorite, Michigan State. I mean, I keep waiting for Maryland to ruin someone's season. Like it feels like they're going to ruin someone's season at some point. Yeah, I mean, they kind of did it to themselves. But it was like, oh, are they going to be the team that ruins Iowa's season? No. Are they going to be the team that ruins Ohio State's season? No. Are they just? And you're just kind of like they are running out of teams whose seasons they can ruin. I think they have Michigan. They have Michigan State this week, Michigan next week, and then Rutgers the final week. And it's possible that Rutgers game is for bowl eligibility for both teams. So maybe they could ruin Rutgers season, but yeah, I mean, I was hoping for something more, but I'm starting to think we might not get it.
Yeah, I'd just be in Rutgers and be like, Maryland ruined our season. It's like, well, I mean, there are 5 other games that you also lost. There are 6 other games that if you'd won any of those.
Can you think about how bad a season for it to count as a ruined Rutgers season? Think about how bad that would have to be. Like I think this is an unruinable season at this point, based on historical precedent. Like this is already a good Rutgers season, and it might be a better Rutgers season, but it's at least good.
5 wins or 4 wins. It may not bring bowl eligibility, but it brings like a bowl in your heart for the players, and they should be able to get some heart swag out of that for the monumental season that they had. So I think we're both going to take Michigan State there. Another stupid SEC West clash. It feels like some of these teams play every single week. Texas Ole Miss is one of those games. Like, is this the 4th time they've played this year, or is it just the 3rd time they've played this year? But whoever wins this will be in the top 10. Texas A&M, number 11, 7-2 on the season. Number 15, Ole Miss, 7-2 on the season. Ole Miss is a 2.5-point underdog in this one. It feels like people are starting to buy into Texas A&M. Texas A&M maybe buying into themselves, and people are getting confident in them. if they win this one, everybody's using all of their Ole Miss wins are all quality. And so if Ole Miss loses again, that's going to take some of that luster off. I feel like this would be an opportunity for Ole Miss to silence the Texas A&M people and just, hey, whoa, settle down there, Aggies. Because I think a lot of people are just like, hey, Texas A&M beat Alabama. They did this, they did that. And it's like, well, they beat Alabama. And that's about the extent of it. Can they now win on the road at Ole Miss? I'm taking Ole Miss. I don't feel good about it, but you know how I feel about Ole Miss this season.
I think I'm going completely the opposite way. Ole Miss has a lot of injuries right now. They've got their wide receiver core is real banged up. I'm not sure how they're scoring a lot of points on Texas A&M this week. And, the over-under is 56.5. This doesn't seem like a 31-28 game to me. I mean, this is, and that's really what the line and the over-under are calling for is about 31-28. I'd go pretty, I'd go pretty strongly on Texas A&M and pretty strongly on the under there. That's at least what I see. Because, I mean, poor Matt Corral, he's been banged up. He got his ankles banged up a couple weeks ago. His wide receiver core now is just like John Reese Plumlee, the former quarterback, is now like a starting wide receiver. Like they are in bad shape there. I think I'd go Texas A&M here. I don't. Ole Miss seems like a team that's going to end the season like 8-4, and you're going to be wondering like, why is everyone still talking about them as a quality win? And yeah, I mean that seems like where we're probably headed here. But rest assured, if Ole Miss somehow wins, then by golly, they'll be number 9 next week because oh boy, they beat a quality Texas A&M team that dropped one whole spot in the rankings.
And Texas A&M had one of the best defenses in the country. Ole Miss is going to have to match that defense this week. They've not been great offensively of late, and would have to alter that in some ways. This is a game where Lane Kiffin almost has to win it rather than anybody on the field, and we'll see there. Tom, I want to kind of group these last 3 games together. It's number 9, Notre Dame at Virginia. I think this is a sneaky game. Be careful. Mm-hmm. Then you've got TCU on the road at Oklahoma State, number 10, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, a 13-point favorite. And you've got Washington State on the road at Oregon. Oregon, a 14-point favorite. There, TCU gets rid of their coach, plays well. Washington State gets rid of their coach, is starting to play better. Oregon, we know, has not been playing well, or they've just been playing well enough. They need to start looking good. So does Ohio State. Oklahoma State has, just muddled along and beaten almost everybody they're supposed to. Same with Notre Dame. These 9, the number 9 team, the number 10 team, number 3 team have kind of won all the same way. So who is the most likely of these 3 teams to lose this week and be booted from the playoff hopes until they are brought back in through everybody else losing as well?
I'm going to go with Notre Dame just because they're on the road. I don't think they're super likely, and a lot of it hangs on the status of Brennan Armstrong, who's the Virginia quarterback who injured his ribs, and Bronco Mendenhall would not, address whether he was actually going to play or not, because these are the kind of things that college football coaches don't talk about for some reason. So, we'll see whether he can play. If he's playing and if he's reasonably healthy, then I think Virginia might be able to put up enough points where, is Notre Dame able to hang with them? And if this game gets up into the upper 30s, is Notre Dame going to be able to hang with Virginia or not? Because I think, Notre Dame is probably a more defense first team this year than rather than offense first. If Virginia can get to 38, 41 points, I think they could win this game. But, TCU just knocked off Baylor. Can they do it 2 weeks in a row? I think you might have had the emotional win last week, but the reality of the situation kind of catches up with you at some point. And, if Oregon was going to Pullman, absolutely, that would be a circle it in red marker. Wazoo is another team where just fired their coach. They've had some good wins since then, or at least one good win since then. But, eventually the emotion of that kind of, fades off and it doesn't last. So, yeah, I think of the 3, Notre Dame is the most likely to lose this week. But boy, if Notre Dame doesn't lose this week, Notre Dame is not losing the rest of the way.
Yeah. And if Brennan Armstrong, Shelby, Ohio's own Brennan Armstrong is good to go. 2 weeks ago against BYU, threw for 340 yards, 337 yards, rushed for 94. So he's a dual threat guy that can really create some issues for Notre Dame and just force them to keep up and score and score and score. I'm with you on Oklahoma State. The reason I think the Washington State Oregon game might be interesting is more about Oregon and, where they are right now and not excelling, not playing well, and maybe just taking the Cougars lightly there. So, Tom, I think that will do it for this weekend show, unless you have anything else you would like to add.
Nope.
All right, then. Succinct. I like it. So that will indeed do it. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you're watching on youtube.com. Go ahead and hit that bell and you'll be notified anytime we drop anything. Also, if you'd like, just hit like on the screen there, and that helps us with YouTube. And if you'd rather just listen to this, you can find us on all of your podcast platforms. Just do a search for Buckeye Weekly and you'll find us there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.